All right, so this is the vertebrae section, and we have 3 different types of vertebrae that you need to know. You need to be able to identify and distinguish between these 3 types, and then identify different structures on each of the vertebrae. Okay, so let's look at what makes them different first. So this is a cervical vertebrae, this is thoracic, and this is lumbar. So the first thing you notice is that they go up in size. So there are 7 cervical vertebrae, they are the smallest, 12 thoracic, they're middle, and 5 lumbar, and they are the largest. We tell you in the PowerPoint that you can look at them as animals. So the cervical vertebrae, if we hold him up like this, he looks kind of like a fox. The thoracic looks more like a giraffe. You can see his giraffe horns. And then the lumbar, if you look at him from the side, it looks like a moose head. Okay, so that's just, if you're looking at it and trying to figure out which one it is, you can use that. But if we ask you to tell us what makes them different, we're really looking for specific characteristics. So first of all, the cervical vertebrae are the only ones that have these holes. And those holes are called transverse foramen. Okay, so if you see holes on the side, if you see transverse foramen, you should know that it's cervical. Okay, the thoracic vertebrae are the only ones that are going to have a facet for the tubercles of the ribs over here on the sides. And at the end of the video, I'll hold up a rib for you so you can see how they articulate with each other. You also see on the thoracic vertebrae that their spinous process, this here in the back, is the longest. Okay, the lumbar vertebrae has the largest body and it has the shortest spinous process back here. The face of the moose makes it little. Okay, so that's the differences between the 3. Now let's look at some bone markings that are the same. And I've mentioned some of these as we've gone through, but here's just pointing them out for you. First is the body, so that's this part on all 3 vertebrae. Those are what are going to stack together to make your vertebral column. Okay. Second is the spinous process. Those are these long extensions in the back and the posterior, and you can feel those if you run your hand along your back. Okay. Then there's the transverse process, which is going out to the side, transverse process on each of those. And we already said the cervical vertebrae is the only one who has transverse foramen. And on the thoracic vertebrae, there's a facet for the tubercle of the ribs on either side. And then we have the superior articular process and the inferior articular process. And those are going to be what sticks up above. That's the superior articular process. And then down below, the inferior articular process. And that's going to connect the vertebrae above and the vertebrae below. And you can see it on the lumbar as well. The superior articular process and then the inferior articular process below. Okay, so those are the general vertebrae types. Let me grab the rib to show you how they fit together. So if we have the vertebrae like this, the rib is going to sit right here. So the head of the rib articulates with the body of the vertebrae, and the tubercle of the rib articulates here with the transverse process. Okay, so that's how they fit together. Okay, then you also have to know 2 specific cervical vertebrae, the atlas and the axis. And they fit together just like this. They are your first 2 cervical vertebrae. So the very top one is the atlas, the one below it is the axis. So things that you can look for on these, the atlas, the first one has no real body. Okay, and then the axis is going to have this large guy at the top called the dens or the odontoid process. Okay, so think a tooth sticks out, and that's how he sits with the atlas. Okay, the parts are going to be similar to what you see on the other vertebrae, you've got a body here on the atlas, oh sorry, on the axis, sorry. You have spinous process here in the back, okay, a small spinous process on the back of the atlas. You have a vertebral foramen, these holes that are large. Transverse processes over here and over here, over here and over here. Transverse foramen in each because they are still cervical vertebrae. And your superior articular process is up here, and your inferior are down here below. Okay, another thing to note as these fit together, that this articulates here with the base of the skull. So these superior articular processes articulate with those occipital condyles found at the base of the skull. Finally, remember to look at your sacrum and your coccyx on the articulated skeleton.